morning, homelanders. I hope everyone had a great weekend, and I really hope everyone has a great week this week. Okay, so let's get to it. So today, we are learning about the 4 different taxes that the colonists were forced to pay and the impact it had. Okay, let's get to the first sugar. Let's get to the first tax/act. The Sugar Act happened in April 1764. The Sugar Act was a 3-cent tax placed on sugar. It also increased taxes on coffee and wine. Okay, the Stamp Act. In March 1765, the Stamp Act required colonists to buy a special stamp to be placed on items such as newspapers, pamphlets, and playing cards. The Quartering Act, May 1765. The Quartering Act was a law that forced colonists to buy supplies and food for British soldiers. It even required colonists to allow soldiers to stay in their homes, which is crazy. I mean, just imagine having a British soldier being forced to live in your home, and you had to pay for supplies and food for that soldier. The Townshend Act, June 1767. The Townshend Act was another tax placed on items like glass, lead, paper, and paint. Okay, those are the 4 taxes. This is on a PowerPoint that you guys will have, and it's very important to use this PowerPoint in the future. Okay, next, you guys should have this paper article called Taxes, Taxes, and More Taxes, okay? So, in the years following the French and Indian War, the British knew that they had to raise money to help pay the debt that they had gained. Remember, war is not cheap, and so they were in more debt after the French and Indian War. The British government, Parliament, passed different laws known as acts that required colonists to pay certain taxes on different items. Okay? The first act was known as the Sugar Act. The act was passed in April of 1764. Each time colonists went to buy sugar, they had to pay an additional 3-cent tax. In addition to sugar, this tax was also added to the purchase of coffee and wine. This was the British government's first attempt to raise money for war debt. Okay, so following the Sugar Act came another act in March of 1765, the Stamp Act. This time, the British forced the colonists to buy a special stamp to be placed on all paper documents such as newspapers, pamphlets, and playing cards. This second act only made the colonists even more angry towards the British government. Many colonists began to protest these taxes. The British government didn't stop there. Later that same year, a third act was passed on May 1765, known as the Quartering Act. This law was different from all the other acts. Instead of having to pay a specific tax on certain items that a colonist bought, this act forced colonists to buy food and supplies for British soldiers that were staying in the colonies. The act would even force colonists to open their homes to British soldiers to let them stay the night without their permission. Think about the colonists must have felt having a stranger in their homes. Finally, the British passed a 4th act on June of 1767 called the Townshend Act. This act placed a forced tax on glass, lead, paper, and paint. The colonists had enough. They grew frustrated that the British continued to tax them without allowing them to share their opinions and ideas. This taxation without representation was about to get ugly. Remember what taxation without representation means? It means that the colonies / colonists did not get their opinion about being taxed. Okay, now if they lived in England, also known as England's Bill of Rights, they would have gotten their opinion. Okay, they would have gotten their representation. But Parliament and the King did not see the colonists fit in those English Bill of Rights. Okay, so that also led to taxation without representation. Okay, they felt they did not need to be represented because they did not live in England. They were colonists. They ruled under the British King / Empire, but that was it. Okay, so after reading this, taxes, and more taxes, you should have the British taxes timeline. Okay, it might say right here, cut and then paste. Do not cut and paste. Okay, this right here, I want you guys to use like a word bank. Okay, so I want you to fill in the order of the timeline. Okay, great news. You can either use this, okay, the article that you just read, taxes, more taxes, or on Google Classroom, this will be posted, okay? The 4 different acts / taxes will be posted, okay? Now, once you guys are done with that, I want you to go to the last page of your packet, okay? Which is this timeline again, okay? See on my timeline, I have the Stamp Act here, the Sugar Act here, number 2, number 3, and number 4, okay? Because these are important, okay? And don't forget about number 5, the Townshend Act, okay? Because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 new items / taxes that we learned about, okay? Again, this is a great time to pause the video and fill this in. Okay, great. Now, going back to British taxes timeline, okay? Fill in the blanks, okay? You guys will have this on the PowerPoint too, which is great. Or you can go back here and try to figure that out, because it does say 3 cents. So you can go back to the article or the PowerPoint. Okay, that is up to you. Now, when you're done with the British taxes timeline, take a picture of this when you're all complete and send it to Mrs. Pins, please. Okay, I hope you guys have a great day. But before I end, I'm going to show you this, okay? So you have to watch video, read taxes, and more taxes, the British timeline. One thing I did not put in was doing this, but make sure you do this, okay? I will be checking on you guys on Wednesday, actually, on doing this, okay? Great. All right. Have a great day, everyone.